Ni hao, ladies, gentlemen, and the rainbow in between. My name is Iain Temperley, and welcome to the Body Count, where we calculate the deaths, demises, and kills of various action and thriller films. And for today's episode, we are looking at Mulan. Now, you might be wondering a couple of things. Number one, why on a show about action and thriller films are you talking about an animated feature? After all, they're not the same genre. It's just another kiddie flick. Well, to the people who have that kind of mindset, I have one thing to say. Screw you. To reference Brad Bird, animation is not a genre, it's an art form, and can encompass many other kinds of genres within it. In fact, Mulan is one of the many great animated action films that are far superior to the tons of mediocre live action crap we've got over the past few decades. Number 2. Hasn't there already been a number of videos made on the body count in Mulan? Yeah, true. But seeing as the remake came out recently, I fancied giving it a go myself. Based on the legend of Hua Mulan and directed by Barry Cook and Tony Bancroft, the film was released in 1998 by Walt Disney Animation Studios during the tail end of the Disney Renaissance. In it, the eponymous heroine goes on a quest to save her father and prove herself in a country and time where women are treated as second class, resulting in an inspiring lead worthy of being one of the Disney princesses, despite her actually not being a princess. That's right, she's not from a noble household, and the love interest is only the son of a general. I should note that other non-princesses, Tinkerbell, Esmeralda, and Jane Porter, used to hold the title as well before they were dropped for various reasons. Beyond that, this is an entertaining film with memorable characters and vivid, sometimes epic animation, not to mention the terrific Oscar-nom score by Jerry Goldsmith and the almost top-draw songs by Matthew Wilder and David Chappelle, in what will be the studio's last musical until 2009's The Princess and the Frog. So as not to risk copyright, I'm not going to be using any of the songs in this video, which just gives you more incentive to check them and the film out for yourself. And for those who are crying Tarzan just now, I'm afraid that's mostly just Phil Collins singing in the background, and hence does not count, since the characters themselves have to sing, I think, at least 3 or 4 songs. Anyway, let's get down to business and count some bodies. After some artistic opening titles, we dissolve to the Great Wall of China, where a lone guard is attacked by a falcon named Hayabusa and some grappling hooks. He goes to light the warning signal when a sinister figure emerges. This is Shan Yu, leader of the Huns, and voiced with malevolent relish by the late Miguel Ferreira. The guard lights the signal anyway, but the warlord isn't too bothered. Now, unlike other kill count videos I've seen in Mulan, I'm actually going to be including this guard, because honestly, given Shan Yu's lack of mercy in the rest of this film, I'd seriously doubt he let this guy live. The invasion is reported to the Emperor, voiced by Mr. Miyagi himself, Pat Morita. He tells the general to protect the people and recruit more men because
a single grain of rice can tip the scale. One man may be the difference between victory and defeat.
That single grain may be our titular heroine, voiced by Ming-Na Wen, who's a work smarter, not harder type of gal. Her father, Fa Zhao, would like her to settle down though, ditto her mother. Mulan is being dolled up to meet matchmaker Miriam Margolyes, where thanks a little to her grandmother's lucky cricket cricky, things comedically escalate.
You may look like a bride, but you will never bring your family honor!
She sings a song of reflection, wanting to show the world her true self without disappointing her family. Her father then joins her to talk about blossoms.
This one's late, but I'll bet that when it blooms, it will be the most beautiful of all.
The voice cast in Mulan is, like most Disney films, uniformly great, but one I feel that gets overlooked is that of Soon Taek-oh, best known from films like The Man with the Golden Gun and Beverly Hills Ninja, who effortlessly conveys an honourable man who respects his country's culture but truly loves his daughter. The Emperor's advisor Shifu, voiced by James Hong, announces that the army demands 1 man from every household, including the Fars. Mulan protests only to be reprimanded. Later that night, Zhao trains with his sword when his old war injuries act up. Mulan confronts him at tea, but he puts her in her place. Our girl's not for giving up though. She cuts her hair, dons her dad's armour and rides off into the night. Her parents find out too late, realising she'll be killed if they reveal her. Grandmother prays to the ancestors and they answer in the form of George Takei and... I live! Yes, that is Eddie Murphy in a sort of trial run for Donkey as disgraced guardian Mushu. Mushu wakes up the rest of the bickering ancestors who decide to send a guardian after Mulan. The nutty dragon offers to go, but they ain't having it after what happened last time. Oh my. Instead, he's ordered to wake up the great stone dragon, which doesn't go well. However, Kriki chirps in to suggest that he trade places with his fellow dragon, which Mushu concurs. Meanwhile, Shan Yu encounters a couple of Imperial scouts who he menaces for a bit before letting them go.
How many men does it take to deliver a message? One.
How's Mulan doing?
Ah, I see you have a sword. I have one too. They're very manly and tough.
Although Mrs. Ren was the speaking voice for Mulan, her singing was instead handled by Filipina singer Lea Salonga, who also provided the singing voice for Jasmine. Lea also auditioned for the speaking voice as well, but was unable to get it after she was unable to convincingly lower her voice enough to pretend to be a man. Mushu makes a grand entrance, but Mulan isn't impressed.
My ancestors sent a little lizard to help me.
Hey, dragon, not lizard. I don't do that tongue thing.
They patch things up though and head into camp to witness the delights of the male species, including Yao, Ling and Chen Po. A crossword leads to a mass brawl just as General Li, voiced by James Shigeta, informs his son, BT Wong Shang, of his battle plan and that he'll be training the new recruits despite Shifu's objections. But it looks like the new captain's got his work cut out for him. He identifies the troublemaker named Ping, who fails to impress. The next day, training begins with Shang firing an arrow, which he orders Zhao to retrieve, but with a couple weights attached. Thus he and the rest fail spectacularly.
We've got a long way to go.
We now get a training montage set to my favourite song from the film, I'll Make a Man Out of You, by Donny Osmond. Again, I can't play any of it here, but if you want a real chest pumping, pick the door down tune to listen to, then this is the ditty for you. These agents of China can't get their shit together though, with Ping particularly struggling. So Shang sends her packing, only she gets an idea to climb and retrieve the arrow, thus prove herself worthy. Everyone else soon follows her lead. After a barely close call,
There are a couple of things I know they're bound to notice.
Mulan overhears Shifu telling Shang that he won't approve him or the recruits for battle. Our girl though tells him he's a great captain. Ah, I saw that look. Is our little Miss Far falling in love with her superior? Mushu tricks Mr. Advisor into thinking the army needs them, so it's off to war. Everyone's in high spirits, singing about a girl worth fighting for, and having fun when... ah, crap. In the remains of this village, Mulan finds a little girl's doll in an interesting callback to an earlier scene where she saved another girl's doll from boys with swords. Here, she was unable to save the girl. They also couldn't prevent the slaughter of the entire Imperial army. Now this was a little tricky to figure out at first because it was hard to tell which was rubble, man or horse, and I don't include any animals on my show I'm afraid. But I was able to first brighten and then sharpen the images to discern, I think, 50 bodies in total. Now the Huns must have massacred way higher, likely into the hundreds, but I'm afraid I can only count what I can see here. The general also won't be joining us for the rest of his life, which sadly brings the death toll for that scene to 52. The army press on where the cannon is set off. This alerts the enemy as arrows rain from above. Fortunately, the upper cannons are retrieved and they return fire. Now I counted 33 people on that mountain, which I feel sounds right considering we see 22 archers earlier, and there's slightly more considering the number of arrows we see flying. From the smoke emerges Shan Yu and his merciless horde, who are hungry for blood, which means it's do or die time. As the horde advances, Mulan gets an idea. She takes a cannon and fires it straight into the mountain, causing an avalanche that wipes them all out. AKA the most difficult body counting scene of the movie, and the reason why the numbers people have for this film vary so much. Fortunately, to save me hours of rewatching and frame by frame, I did a bit of research. The animators used a computer program called Attila to create an army of 2,000 Han soldiers. Therefore, I'm going to be putting 1,994 on the count. Why not 2,000? You'll find out later. Also, although I'll be classifying as the entire Han army as male because that's what they look like, I should note that historically female Huns did fight alongside the men in combat. Happily, our guys survive as Shang thanks her for saving his life. Unhappily, our heroine received a wound that requires medical attention, and thus the truth is revealed. She tries to explain herself, but it looks like the end for her. However, Shang spares her life instead.
A life for a life. My debt is repaid.
Mulan and co are left to mope and reflect, becoming closer in the process. However, Hayabusa signals that when there's no more Roman hell, 6 evil Huns will walk the earth. Mulan observes this and rushes to the city, where a victory festival is on. She tries to warn Shang, but he refuses to listen to her.
You said you'd trust Ping. Why is Mulan any different?
Of course, the Huns re-emerge and kidnap the Emperor. The army try to break down the door, but Mulan has another idea. Time to make a woman out of them. Dressed as concubines, they take out the Huns so Shang can tackle their leader and allow the Emperor to be rescued. The enraged warlord seeks vengeance when Mulan reveals herself as his army's destroyer, so he turns his attention to her. Luckily, the Ideas Girl gets another one and sends the psychics on a mission before Shan corners her on the roof. Except she uses her fan to disarm him as Mushu reveals the secret weapon. Mulan sweeps and pins Yu before he's sent flying into the other fireworks. Meanwhile, Mulan sticks the landing. Despite this, Shifu's not happy, and neither is the Emperor, who chastises the girl for her dishonourable actions before thanking her for saving them all. Everybody's bowing, baby.
That little baby is all grown up and saving China.
He offers her a council position, but she says it's time for her to go home. So he gifts her his seal and Shan Yu's sword. Hugs for everyone, but Shang's less receptive. Maybe the Emperor could offer some sage advice.
You don't meet a girl like that every dynasty.
The late Blossom returns to her father with her war trophies, but he tosses them aside because
The greatest gift and honor is having you for a daughter.
Then Shang turns up.
Woo! Sign me up for the next war.
So Mulan asks him to stay for dinner. Meanwhile, Mushu is made a guardian again, which means it's party time. And that's where the film ends. So how many Huns were eliminated by our non-princess princess? Let's cut to the chase and head over to the breakdown. In total, 2,082 people died in Mulan, by far the highest we've had on the show so far. And with a runtime of 84 minutes, means that there was a death on average every 2.42 seconds. Damn. I was very tempted to award the Magnum Bullet to the wipeout of the Huns, but instead I'm giving it to the Shan Yu firework, which was a fine punctuation kill for Mulan's story, whereas the damp squib will go to that guard from the wall. Well, that does it for this episode of The Body Count. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Xiao Go Zhishi.